Hello there! Reading children's books is always a lot of fun, but so is writing and illustrating them. As a kid, especially in elementary school, I gained a love for reading and then writing and drawing, and I would write my own books all the time. I kind of fell out of that as the years went by, and it wasn't until this year, my senior year of high school, that I remembered how much I liked writing and drawing. And thus, for my senior project, I decided to write my own children's book, Wallace the Walrus and the Polar Picnic. And through this experience, I learned that writing and illustrating children's books is an enjoyable pastime that will eventually bring joy to others who read it. I got the idea to write a children's book for my senior project from Mr. Covington's creative writing class. I'd always loved writing books as a kid, and joining this class really helped me remember that. I decided to make Wallace the Walrus the star of my book because he's a character that I've always loved drawing all over the place on my friends' papers or teachers' whiteboards. Wallace the Walrus and the Polar Picnic is about a walrus named Wallace who catches a polar bear eating all his friends' food. At first, Wallace is very upset, but he soon learns the polar bear was just hungry, so they become friends. But I won't give anything else away because I'll be reading the story to you later on in this presentation. Originally, Wallace the Walrus and the Polar Picnic was a poem that I wrote in Mr. Covington's class. I then decided to turn it into a book when I was faced with choosing a topic for my senior project. In doing this, it was both an enjoyable and enlightening experience. The process of writing this book was very fun, and I learned a lot about writing, illustrating, and myself. I took up my own techniques, which included writing the story and then illustrating with watercolor. I also learned some important lessons, such as how to manage my time efficiently, and if it hadn't been for the quarantine, I probably wouldn't be finished, because it took sitting down for 2 hours a day once the quarantine started to actually paint. I have a newfound respect for painters because I learned that watercolor takes a lot of patience, and I'd often find myself wanting to rush through things, but then I'd have to go back and fix it. Another technique I developed was outlining my watercolor illustrations with chalk. It helped to give them more of a defined look and add some detailing, which was really nice. However, that proved to cause a few problems a little later on in my process. Some changes I would make for the next time I write a book is to definitely plan out my time better and have certain days that I'm going to have certain tasks done. And also, I don't think I would outline my illustrations in chalk because it tended to smudge on the pages. Not only was writing Wallace the Walrus and the Polar Picnic a learning experience, but it had a great personal impact on me as well. I really learned that I really love writing and illustrating children's books, and it kind of reaffirmed that love that I had as a child. Coming up with rhymes and wacky poetry and doodling animals has always come easily to me and was always a lot of fun. And it looks like the practice has paid off. Writing this book gave me access to a creative way to express myself in a way that others will enjoy. It's one thing to put hard work into something that you love, but the fact that it'll make others happy is just all the more better. I can't wait to read this book to the kids I babysit or my little cousins. Not only did I discover a passion for children's book writing, but I discovered I was pretty good at it. Maybe this is something I'll want to do in the future. I plan on being an elementary school teacher, so it'd be super cool to write books on the side and then read them to my students. By writing and illustrating Wallace the Walrus and the Polar Picnic for my senior project, I learned not only what it takes to be an author and illustrator, but also the joy that it brings to yourself and will soon bring to others. I'm so excited to share it with everyone I know and bring a smile to their face as they read about Wallace the Walrus and his frozen friends. Now, I will read the book to you. Wallace the Walrus and the Polar Picnic. Written and illustrated by Megan Malone, and dedicated to Mr. Orban, who never failed to let me draw on his whiteboard. Wallace the Walrus liked to play among the waves and ice all day. He swam with the seals, and on fish they dined, a happier bunch you were sure not to find. But one day they had a terrible fright. A ferocious polar bear had arrived that night. He was chewing their clams and eating their fishes, and when he was done, he did not wash the dishes. Wait, stop! Those are our rations, Wallace cried out in a quite frantic fashion. All the other walruses felt such a scare, but Wallace marched right up to that big polar bear. The polar bear then put his head down ashamed. Thank goodness for Wallace, he seemed to be tamed. Oh, please, Mr. Walrus, I mean you no harm. I'm just very hungry. There's no cause for alarm. Smiling as he realized that he was mistaken, Wallace offered a flipper that it may be shaken. I have an idea if you won't become seasick. Come with me and my friends on an iceberg top picnic. But what shall we eat? I ate all the food. Don't worry, Mr. Polar Bear, I know what to do. Wallace picked up a snowball that had been thrown, placed it on top of an icicle, and made a snow cone. The walruses cheered and clapped their big flippers, and the polar bear smiled, for now he was chipper. They all made their snow cones and went on their way, and the iceberg top picnic made for a wonderful day. The end. I really hope you enjoyed my book, and spread the word to any young kids you know if you need a good gift for a cousin. Check out Wallace the Walrus and Polar Picnic. It was so much fun to make, and I'm so glad I chose this topic for my senior project. And I plan to write more children's books following Wallace the Walrus and his friends and their adventures. So thank you so much for watching my video, and I hope you enjoyed my book. One thing I hope you take away from this project is if you're ever interested in writing a children's book, go for it. It's such an enjoyable experience, and other people will love your work. It's also a testimony to any passions that you once had as a kid that you thought, oh, I used to be good at that, but I don't want to do that anymore. Go for it. I hadn't written a children's book in years, and doing it was a wonderful experience. Thanks for reading.